Well, welcome to the Port Clinton Lighthouse Conservancy. We're here to show off our Port Clinton Lighthouse and talk a little bit about the history of the lighthouse and why it's here, and promote that to you, the public, and maintain it for posterity. This is the second Port Clinton Lighthouse. The first lighthouse was built just across the street to our south. It was made out of stone. Built back in the mid-1800s. The problem was at that time the harbor entrance ran more east and west, and there was a lot of sandbars, and it was difficult for shipping to get in and out of the channel. So the government decided that the lighthouse was no longer needed and tore it down. So for a number of years there was no lighthouse here, and sometimes people ask, why did we have a lighthouse at all? And if you think about it, while today we're known as the walleye capital of the world, and if you look at the traffic coming in and out of the river, you've got Jet Express taking tourists over to the islands, you've got head boats for commercial fishing, sportsmen are out, in and out. But 200 years ago, this was quite a different location. If you'll remember your history, the War of 1812, Oliver Hazard Perry defeated the British just behind me off of the islands in Lake Erie, and with the defeat of the British fleet, that opened up the Great Lakes for westward expansion of the United States, increased the commerce in the area. So while at the time you had wooden cargo ships bringing cargo up and down the river, we were famous at the time for the Great Black Swamp, and the timber from that industry was ferried up and down this river out to ports in the Great Lakes. As as sailing ships turned into steam-powered vessels, we became known as an area for the excursion boats from Cleveland, Toledo, and Detroit to stop and visit. So once again, people started asking for another lighthouse to make it easier to find our harbor. At that time, the river was diverted. It no longer ran east and west, and it is in the position that you see it today. With that diversion, it made the harbor much easier to find, and we renewed the effort to have a lighthouse, and the United States government at that time finally did give us the second lighthouse, the one that you see behind me. During that time, Port Clinton was famous for boat building. Captain Duff in 1873 built the very first wooden sailing ship designed to sail on the oceans coming out of the Great Lakes. Up until that time, most boats were of a shallow draft for the Great Lake sailing. That boat, the C.B. Benson, made several successful voyages to South America and back before it was lost in a storm at the eastern end of Lake Erie by Buffalo. We're also famous here in Port Clinton for the Matthews Boat Company, and the Matthews Boat Company was successful as ships went from steam then to gasoline power, and the very first transatlantic voyage under gasoline power was a Matthews boat. It was a 32-foot Detroit, built right here in Port Clinton, and sailed to Russia under gasoline power. It was then given as a gift to the Tsar of Russia. Well, so the second lighthouse then was the one that you see right behind me. It's what they call a pepper pot lighthouse. We do believe that this is the last remaining wooden timber framed lighthouse on the Great Lakes, on the United States side of the Great Lakes. We're not 100% sure of what's in Canada still. This lighthouse was put into position on the western pier here at the river entrance. If you look out there today, you can still see the original piers and stairs that led to it. This is the original lighthouse. It was removed from service by the United States Coast Guard and scheduled to be destroyed in the 1950s. The gentleman who had the contract to destroy it was given 5 gallons of kerosene and told to burn it. But as he lifted it off of the pier, he took it to his marina just upriver and placed it at the entrance of his marina, and there it sat for all these years. In 2012, the Lighthouse Conservancy was created, and we picked up this lighthouse, took it to a storage unit, and began the reconstruction. And a group of volunteers spent about 2 years doing that work, and it's been quite a joy to have done it. So if you'd like, we could take a walk up to the lighthouse and we'll actually take a look inside. Well, here we are at our 1896 lighthouse. This lighthouse was placed here in 2016, and for the 50 years, 60 years prior to that, it sat on the ground at the marina just up the river, and it was sort of settling into the mud and had a lot of decay and rot at the base of it. So we spent 2 years doing a full restoration of this lighthouse. We scraped every piece of paint from top to bottom off of it, repaired what was necessary to put it back in order, and in 2016 had a barge bring it down the river from its facility that we restored it. A crane picked it up off the barge, placed it on a truck. The truck backed it over to here, and we placed it on these new piers that it sets upon and poured the new steps for it, and finally had it in place where we wanted it. So this is our original 1896 lighthouse, fully restored and here for you to see. And if you're ready, we could go on in and take a little look. Please, come on in, and welcome to the inside of our Port Clinton Lighthouse. As you can see, it's very small, cozy, not a lot of room in here. It wasn't a very large lighthouse. As a matter of fact, I've had people visiting ask where the other half of the lighthouse is, but this is how it was designed, as a small 2-story lighthouse. As you can see, there's just a few storage cubicles in here, some shelving. Basically, you have to keep in mind that a lighthouse keeper was tasked with visiting daily, lighting the light, being sure it was kept on all night long and through storms. The government did have a log book that he had to maintain, talking all about how he cleaned it and how much kerosene he was using. We do have a bucket down here for the kerosene. These are all period items that we found. Took quite a bit of searching to find some of these things. They are getting rare. But he would get kerosene from a very large kerosene tank outside, bring it in and carry it upstairs to the lamp itself. The original lamp was a kerosene light. It burned red, it was constant, it did not blink. And we'll see that here in just a moment. Other than that, there's just a few items in here. There is a picture of the original lighthouse, the stone one that was across the street. If you don't have any questions, we'll go around up the steps and we'll see the lens itself. Okay, well, welcome to the top of the lighthouse. What we have here is a 5th order Fresnel lens. This is a replica of the original. This was made by a company in South Florida, and it is exact. The only difference is, and I'll turn this so you can see it better, is this is now made out of an acrylic instead of the originals would have been made out of glass. This turns only because some lights were meant to blink to warn oncoming shipping, and to blink there was actually a pendulum system just like an old grandfather clock would have had, and as the pendulums moved up and down, this would have swiveled and turned and made that blink. As you can see on the back, this side is not, there's no glass here, so that would have blocked the light and create the blinking that you would see. This light is now electric. It has just a small bulb inside. To replace this on the lakeshore, the United States Coast Guard would not allow us to put in either a red light or a blinking light or anything of that sort. So it does meet the Coast Guard aids to navigation. It's listed on all their charts. And that's pretty much it for the light itself. As you can see, this light with the refractory of the light through this lens was supposed to have been seen for 8 miles out into the lake, and this did the job for any incoming shipping. As you can see, you've got quite a nice view out into the water, so take a moment and enjoy it. right, as I said, this originally was a kerosene light. The lighthouse keeper would have tended to the light itself here. You can see these two doors swing open just so that he can reach to it. The kerosene lantern, being that it was a flame, needed to be vented. So if you look straight up at the ceiling, you'll see that this is all made out of tin, and there's a special cover here for the fumes to come up and the gases would go out, and there's a very large vent ball on top that you'll see from outside. As any combustion, you need an intake of air to feed it. So if you look down here in the walls, we have these, there are 4 vents in here, and he would just loosen them up and he could spin these around to open and close them just like you do a wood stove at home. And that's how he controlled the venting and the fire in the kerosene lantern. As I stated earlier down below, we have been trying to find some artifacts to go along with it. Here's an example of an oil lamp from the period that the keeper would have used when he was doing his maintenance up here. Well, while we were researching the history for our lighthouse, we came across in the National Archives the actual blueprints for the boathouse that went along with it. The lighthouse keeper at the time would have rowed across the river from the boathouse each day to the lighthouse to do his service work. The blueprints were used to make an exact replica of that original lighthouse. And as you can see, we actually milled the lumber to the proper dimensions of the time period and created it. And we put that in place here on the pond at Derby Pond in 2018. And inside of that, we sell some gifts, and we also sell the tickets for the tours when available. Well, if you look out here at the twin piers going out into the lake from the mouth of the Portage River, you'll see on the right is the green signal, on the left is the red. Where that red triangle is where the lighthouse sat originally. The original piers and stairs are still out there. If you drive by in a boat, you'll see them. If you look further out into the lake, you'll see the Lake Erie Islands. That's Put-in-Bay, otherwise known as South Bass Island, Middle Bass Island, Isle St. George, Green Island, Rattlesnake Island. There are quite a few others out there. The main island is Put-in-Bay, and where you see the monument sticking up, that is the Perry's Victory Monument. It's a national park on the island to celebrate the peace. It's a peace memorial for the War of 1812, and it's quite interesting if you have the time to go see it. Off to the right is the Catawba Peninsula, and as you can see, we've got a beautiful beach in Port Clinton, so come on up and visit.